It's July 30th. We're up in the Sono Tower Switch Museum, which was put up in 1896, and it was called Tower 44 under the New Haven, later on becoming Burke Tower under Penn Central. It is now a museum. Today we have Nick Atlas here, who's going to tell us about his career in the track department and how far he went, and an interesting story a little later on. So Nick, when did you hire out?
I hired out in April of '84. My headquarters were in New Haven. I had to go to New York in order to get the job. Went to 347 Madison Avenue. Met with this guy named Ed Boney at the time. He was one of the head guys there. I shook his hand. And he said, "Oh, you work out?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "When do you want to start?" I said, "Oh, today." He said, no, you can't start today, but I've got to set for a physical." I said, "Okay." I went 2 days after that, got a physical, and after that, probably about 3 days after that, I came down and got hired. So I started off as a trackman for probably about a year and a half, and you would start bidding different jobs. They wouldn't let you bid a job.
Where did you hire out to work when you first started?
At Bridgeport. And what it happened was, you'd have to be on the railroad for at least a year before you start bidding various jobs. They wouldn't let you bid jobs. They wouldn't let you bid out of a trackman. So after about a year and a half or so, the first job I could get was a C driver, which that was just driving the gang around in the foreman. Once you got at the job site, you would be called a flagman, which you have to watch out, a gang flagman. You have to watch out for the gang, but the foreman, he would still get the M forms. You just have to let them know when trains were coming on any track at the time, and the gang would clear up. So once I did that, probably about a year or so after that, I ended up bidding a Class 2 machine job, which entailed running a tie handler, various different jobs, tie handler, a scout fire, a whole bunch of different jobs at the time. I was in the track department, went into the track department, ran all the machines in the track department, which is scout fire, like you mentioned earlier, a burrow inserter, a whole bunch of different various jobs. So that was a really good part of it. I love running machines at the time.
So you too, Nick, when you were running those machines, you were picking up rail and steel and ties while the fellow workers were all down there working, so you had to be very careful.
Yes.
They were working underneath that heavy.
Correct. It was at the time, anytime you had to move a piece of equipment or anything, you had to make sure that everybody was in clear. If you're going backwards, you have to beat the horn 3 times backwards, 2 times forward, and then if anybody could go, you have to have a 15-foot clearance between when you were working, and so no one was in there in between where you were working. It's 15 foot in between. So once they did their job, everybody would clear up. I ended up doing whatever I had to do at the time, put in the ties or rail or whatever it may be at the time.
And you always had to be concerned with that 4.5 feet of safety barrier.
Yes, all the time. People, if anything would happen, it wouldn't have been good.
No, if you stepped past 4.5 feet, you were in the other track.
Right, you know the track. You had to make sure too that job briefing was done early in the morning, because before we did a job briefing, to tell you what track we were working in, what trackers they had traffic in, and make sure that if you cleared up, you were clearing up in the track that the foreman had out. There was 2 other people that would watch out besides just the flag. And everybody just make sure that you were in the gauge of the track that was out of service. Little interruption there.
Little interruption, just like in the real world.
Yeah.
Of course, this is the real world.
You're right.
So you did all those pieces of machinery.
Mm-hmm.
You got qualified on all that. It was a mentorship, wasn't it? You learned from other people?
Yes. I mean, what I would do is, a lot of times when I was working before I got any kind of machine, I would go up to the guy if I wanted to run that machine later on. I knew I wanted to run it. So what I would do is I would jump on that piece of equipment or talk to the guy all the time. And then whenever I had a chance, if the machines were in the yard, I'd get a chance to get up in there and just play around with them out of service track. It was never on the service track.
No, not until you were qualified.
Right.
So that's how you learned. It
Yeah.
was mentoring.
Yes.
Like all the departments on the railroad.
Yep.
Whether it's an engineer or a towerman, another person taught you the job.
Right, and you'd have to be qualified to go on the main line. You would never let you out on the main line unless you were qualified on that piece of equipment. And you always had a instructor with you at the time when you're beginning, instructor when you went on the main line, or else you couldn't work out there.
And so, in 1983, you ended up on Metro North
Yes,
as a Metro North employee.
at the time, yes, at the
Yeah.
time, yep.
Prior to that, you worked for Conrail.
No, prior to that, I was a sheet metal worker. I worked in New Haven as a sheet metal worker doing welding. And a friend of mine came along and said, "You want to work for the railroad?" I said, "Yeah." So I said, we went down to New York, met the guy, Ed Boney, and he said, "Yeah, you got the job." I said, "Okay." I quit my job the next day.
Yeah, Eddie Boney. I remember when he was a train master. Good
Yeah.
guy. He became
Great
a
guy,
superintendent. Yeah, good guy. Good guy. So you hired out on Metro North.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
You hired out on Metro North.
Yeah.
And so you progressed as time went on to different machinery. What terminals did you work out of?
I just out of New Haven, basically. I came from New Haven to Stanford. I worked in New York a little bit when I got my farmer rights. I was later on in the years, and then I came back to Bridgeport.
So you didn't go to North White or Harmon?
No. Then I was fortunate enough to get a Class 1 operator, which meant running different cranes. I ran like Burrow cranes, American cranes, truck cranes. So I love running a piece of equipment more so than anything, so that's what I stuck with until later on I got tired of running equipment and I went down to New York to get qualified as a foreman. I did a foreman's job. I had to go to school for almost 2.5 months down in Grand Central, and then once you got that, then you had to bid a job anywhere in the line to get qualified. I mean, to get down there and get a job.
So to become a foreman, Nick, what did they have you do in that 2.5 months? Did they teach you about train orders?
They taught you from soup to nuts. It's just how to, first of all, how to write out end forms, how to get along with people, what do you got to do in different circumstances. You had to take different tests. Once a week you had to take a test in order to progress, in order to qualify to get out this class. It was a lot of different. There was math. There was a lot of things in detail. But the stuff that I think I learned more on the outside than the inside, you had to learn all the, obviously, the different,
characteristics of the road?
Yeah, the characteristics, you had to do everything, but yeah, so that was.
Did you have to know every switch, every station?
You had to be, all physical characteristics. On any line that you worked on, you had to take physical characteristics, which meant, I worked in New Haven to Stanford, then New Canaan, occasionally went to Waterbury. I never went beyond there. I went to 112, went to New Rochelle, but other than that, I worked basically on the east side.
So you had to know all the
switches.
all the switches.
Yeah, all the switches, all the train stations, all the speeds.
Did you have to know the same speeds the engineer has to know?
Yes, it's already in the book right there. Yeah.
Yeah, even though you were on track equipment.
Even though you're on track, it doesn't make a difference.
How fast did you go on the track equipment?
It depends. Most of the time we ran a restricted speed, so that meant stopping half the distance of visual if you've seen anything. So that's basically what we worked on. Or unless you had to track out of service, you would travel in different spots. You could run faster than that, but it's basically restricted speed, which meant 15 miles an hour.
Not exceeding 15 miles an hour, looking out for train obstruction or switching properly line.
Correct.
When you came to drawbridges, and the track was out of service, how did you get over the bridge?
You had to get an M form to get over the bridge at the time. You used to be able to get verbal permission, but they changed that around a couple years afterwards when changed it. So
Yeah, when they changed it, different things
yeah,
happened.
Yeah,
Yeah, made it a little safer.
right.
Made it safer. So if the track was out and you were going to run from New Haven to, say, Norwalk, where we are today, there was several bridges you were going to go over.
Correct.
Devon, Saga, Walk. So you stopped at each one of those, even though you had an M form telling you you were good to Norwalk.
Right. It didn't make a difference. You had to stop at every single before a bridge, and then get permission through the foreman, which had the M form, which called the dispatcher that gave him permission to go through any interlock. You could not go through an interlock, and no matter what, you had to stop at a red light, red signal. Even if the signal was green, it might have been green by mistake, but you never passed it. You always had to stop.
Even if the light's green.
Yeah, it doesn't make a stop difference.
Okay. Did you ever see anything, train passing by, that had something wrong while you were out there? Did you got the move stopped?
Yes, there was a couple of times, you're watching on the side, I seen a bunch of wire wrapped around, what is it, on the train there,
On the truck? Or up in the cat?
no, on the bottom over there, on
Oh,
the third wheel shoe, I'm sorry, third
Oh.
wheel shoe. And you could see spark coming, so until you would clear up, because you never know where it was gonna fly off or come. But a few times I've seen something like that. Or shoes coming off a train, they might have hit a bad spot and the shoe would fly off, which is a metal. You know,
steel.
it's steel, yeah.
How much does a third rail shoe weigh?
Probably about 5 pounds.
Wow, and it just flew off the train.
Yeah,
Jesus.
and that happened, a few times. So that's why they always told you, no matter what, if you're working, you hear a train, you have to clear up. Always watch the train go by at a safe distance.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I had 42 years, I never heard that.
Yeah. Yeah. I had 34 years before I retired.
Yeah. Wow. Well, okay. It's a very safety-sensitive job. That's what you did.
It was a great job.
It was a great
A lot
job.
of fun.
You had a lot of fun. You worked with a lot of good people.
A lot of good people.
Yeah.
Still stay in touch with probably 10% of the people.
Yeah. Yeah, because you worked very close in a dangerous environment.
Constantly. Every day was something like that. And later on, when you got, complacent, a lot of people, you work a lot of years, you think, you get complacent about what's going on out there. You have to remind yourself and remind people to remind you to listen.
Yep. That's the same thing in being a railroad engineer.
Right.
The regular man is the guy that gets into trouble because he makes the same move every day.
Every day.
And every day he does this, and all of a sudden something is different, but you don't pick up on it.
Now,
You don't pick up on it.
that's why you have people always,
Always looking out.
for you. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Welcome.